strong leadership. We need to have policies, supervision, and training. The Honorable Bishop was part of the jail commission. They came up with great ideas to reform our organization, but at the end of the day, I was brought in as a commander to actually implement these reforms because I'm respected within the organization, and I laid clear expectations to our Deputy of Conduct. I know from many people that are here that you know that you can access me at any time. That's why I was put as the position of Assistant Sheriff when crime was troubled in certain areas, because it's not always good news. Sometimes there are complaints and concerns, and I will listen to those concerns and I will do something about it. Not just complain, I will hold people accountable. Yes, that means some people have to get fired, terminated, but oftentimes we can save people that have good intentions but not right direction. So what I want to bring is that clear direction as the sheriff, be open and responsive to the needs of the community, and bring back a total faith revival within the organization, meaning our clergy, which is starting to be disbanded right now. We need to empower that, because you know what? The youth outreach that I've done in Compton and East Los Angeles and throughout Los Angeles County has had a real positive impact for the future of our great county. And that's what I hope to bring back to the sheriff.
Thank you. So with that, thank you to each and every one of you for recognizing this and being here as the priority that it is. Our rules are kind of straightforward and simple today for today's forum. This is a forum and not a debate. I'm going to ask questions, and the questions will be directed to each one of you, the same question. I will alternate. We will start first. You will have 2 minutes to answer the question. Our timekeeper will show you when you have 30 seconds remaining of your 2 minutes, and then she'll show you the stop sign when your 2 minutes is up. We appreciate you for recognizing her timekeeping efforts. Also, I would ask that you just direct your responses to the audience, to me and to the audience. Refrain from attacking each other if you can. And it's not a debate, so there won't be any need for you to cross-talk and debate with each other. And we'll direct all the questions to each of you collectively. To the audience, please provide the candidates the opportunity to answer the questions. I won't ask you to not applaud, but we do want to give them an opportunity to have all the time they can to answer the questions. For sure, if you applaud, that's fine, but no hissing or blowing or egg throwing or anything of that sort. Okay, as we get started, my first question will be, and I will share it with you candidates, these first few questions you'll hear quite a bit. What do you think and how do you feel? One of you in your responses just used the word relationship, and indeed it is a big relationship. You will know that in the inner cities, our usual and most common relationship to our government is when we call for police assistance. By and large numbers, we don't serve on communities, forums, and bureaus and all those things. So usually we see our government when that police car, as I said earlier, shows up. So what you think and how you feel about people in the inner city is important. And in that, I always pay respect to an incident involving a woman named Eula Love. Eula Love was a black woman who was shot 8 out of 12 times by 2 officers in the process of trying to have her gas turned on. I said she's a black woman, but actually becomes immaterial because the lead officer in that shooting was indeed a black police officer. So that says something about training. But the reason why I mentioned the Eula Love incident, after Eula Love was slain by that particular police department in front of her 3 small children, in regards to her gas bill, what was considered an all-time low in terms of the feeling of the community was expressed by the then police chief at that time. His remark was on the evening news, because she supposedly had swung a shovel or thrown a knife at one of the officers. His response was that anyone who assaults his officer should expect to be dealt in the harshest manner possible. Obviously disregarding any feelings or whatever her children may have suffered or the community may have suffered. How important is it to you that you, as the head police officer, the head law enforcement officer of the County of Los Angeles, how important is it to you that you be able to demonstrate to the community that you still can have a regard for the community, people as people as people? Does that make sense to you? Mr. Olmsted, would you start first, please? And you have 2 minutes. And I believe that microphone is working. Feel free to use it.
Can you hear me back there, all right?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Use of force in this particular incident is something that we need to use the last resort no matter what. And we're only going to be as good as the outreach we have with the community. And part of reaching out to the communities I need to build more community-based type policing operations. I just came back from a conference just a little while ago on the dealing with mentally ill. And I offered up in a particular case like this that maybe we should have a mental health clinician assigned to every sheriff's station. That way they can deal with some of the nuances and some of the particulars of the community as things pop up. Things that we're not really trained in as much as a clinician would be. Same thing. I would love to have a city prosecutor assigned to every sheriff's station as well. And with that in mind, they can go ahead and deal with all the nuances of the city, the things in the city, truancy issues, dealing with the kids, yard cards, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
This is a coalition being able to deal with the community and the outreach. Right now, our department is downsizing our reserve program, and they're downsizing our civilian volunteer program. That's uncalled for. That's the opposite direction we should be going. I need more civilian volunteers out there. I think probably the only diverse community more so than LA County is probably New York City. And I need to be able to have my civilian volunteers, I need to have my reserves reach out to those communities and be the ambassadors to the 160, 170 different cultural groups that are out there. And each group has something to offer to teach us what's unique and special to their communities and what's important to them. By understanding what their needs are, then I, as sheriff, is going to be able to understand the better needs of the community. And that's the only way we're going to move forward. I have to build a bridge. I can't wait for the bridge to be built back to me.
Relative to use of force, anybody who engages in excessive use of force or unreasonable use of force needs to be fired from the organization. They've lost the privilege to be a member of the law enforcement profession. So a comment like that from a law enforcement executive leader is reprehensible. We use force when we have to. We stop using force when we no longer have to. There needs to be that level that's appropriate. Secondly, leaders have to be accountable. We've had some recent things going on with one agency down in the South County, Long Beach Police Department. There are allegations of racial profiling. The chief of police there didn't stand up and speak on behalf of the organization. He delegated that to his subordinate. We recently had a shooting where they killed an unarmed man that was being chased by a sheriff's department. We used less people on this suspect. He kept running, ran into Long Beach police officers. He was killed with his hands outside of his pockets. Again, we didn't hear from the chief executive. As sheriff, I'm going to be accountable for everything that my deputies do. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to face the music, whether it's positive or negative, about what's going on. In terms of the relationship with the community, I teach community policing all over the state of California. I've been doing it for 22 years. And I ask people, I said, you know what, think of the worst community you can in the state of California, or any place you've ever worked. Think about the worst community you can. You tell me what percentage of the people in that community are bad people. And usually I don't have to name the community because I don't want to insult anybody, but they'll come up with like, well, maybe 5% are bad guys, and leaving 95% of the folks are law-abiding, hard-working people just trying to make a life for themselves and their families. I said, you need to remember that. When you go out there, everybody's not a crook. The vast majority of everybody that we serve are law-abiding good people. And what community policing is working with the good guys and not just against the bad guys. So in terms of relationship, we need to find out who those good guys are, partner with them, work with them, and see what we can do to make our communities better. Thank you.
This is one of those cases where it's probably not smart from a political standpoint, but I have to recognize my partner here, who I work with, we're both assistant sheriffs. He was teaching at ARTWIT's regional community policing when it was first founded. In fact, I think he was one of the original people. So it is true, and we need to continue to expand community policing.
Wow.
I'll give a perfect example. We all know here from our community, we don't have to go far to come up with those incidents. Does everyone remember the incident on Butler and Compton when there was 100+ shots? Okay.
Sure do.
Interesting thing is, again, what is he doing politically? I was a watch commander when that occurred. And a lot of people, for political expedience, try to say, ooh, he was in charge of that operation. But let's look at what actually happened. Those people were held accountable. They stood in front of the media and said that they really made tactical errors and judgments, and some people were terminated, some people received severe discipline. We need someone who doesn't come up with, like the chief that you had mentioned, excuses. We're not tolerating that in our community. And I got this foundation from people such as my father had introduced me to West Angeles Church of God in Christ, the Honorable Bishop Charles E. Blake, where I attended a law enforcement fellowship for many years. Now First A&E Church, of which you built up with your congregation. And Rafer Owens, who was building up when they were first started on Compton in May, when he was scratching and clawing to bring up the church. These are my mentors who gave me the foundation of actually laying out expectations of what we expect for our community. And that's how we have that kind of direct accountability, hearing and not denial or anything like that. Law enforcement should be open. We're never going to be a perfect people, but we will be accountable. And we expect the sheriff, who's going to hold people accountable when those incidents do happen. No excuse making. Listen to all the facts, find out what's true, be fair, be respectful, and hold people accountable. That's what I will do.
Thank you.
I generally agree with all my opponents here, and I respect what they have to say. But I'm going to spare you the history lesson. Okay, we don't need to talk about what has happened. I think everybody that's here knows what has happened. I want to tell you specifically what I want to see happen in the future, which is what makes me a little distinct here. Is I want to see the Sheriff's Department regain the trust of the community. The Sheriff and the Sheriff's Department can't do their job effectively without the trust of the community. Now specifically, do you know that deputies come out of the academy and go to the jail for 6 to 8 years? Where they're, someone here talked about, I think Mr. Rogers talked about the 5% that maybe aren't the best citizens in the community. That's the people in the jail. That's the only people they deal with and get indoctrinated into that interaction with for 8 years. We need to stop that. When I'm the sheriff, deputies are going to come out of the academy and go to patrol, or they're going to stay in custody if that's where they want to stay. And that's going to be a professionalized custody staff. Deputies are going to come out on the street, learn that they're interacting with the 95%, to steal my opponent's numbers, the 95% of people that are good people, that are upstanding citizens, that are people's mothers, brothers, cousins, sisters, and learn that they're going to make those relationships. And that's why it's important to me to have them do that, because we need those relationships to be effective. We can't keep treating everybody like an inmate. And they may have to go back to the jail and spend their time doing their tour in the jail, but that's not how they're going to start their careers in their formative years when they're 20, 21 years old. So relationships are important to me, so important to me that I want to change the way the Sheriff's Department has been doing that for over 100 years. Thank you.
Okay, very good. You have both, all four of you, I should say, have alluded to, or bring me to the next question I want to ask you. You talk about performance and behavior. Let me share with you that on the streets in the neighborhood, sheriff deputies are referred to as gangsters with badges. And unfortunately, a lot of that's been rightfully earned by the deputies themselves, that description. A gentleman who was appearing on, or who was speaking on a national public radio program, NPR, he was quoting Peter Eliasberg of the ACLU, and here's what Mr. Eliasberg said. I think it'd be a mistake to say that can Mr. Hartman be the silver bullet to reform the Sheriff's Department? I don't think anybody or any entity can. And Mr. Ellsberg says that it's been a number of festering sores that have gone on so long without attention. My question to you is, what form of oversight do you believe the Sheriff Department should have, if it should have oversight at all? What form of oversight do you believe it should have? Obviously, it's documented that misbehaving does happen. So what would be your solution to that? What form of oversight? Mr. Rogers, I believe we'll start with you.
Just to comment on that briefly, we've had leaders that have...
Talk a little louder, please, Mr. Rogers.
I'm sorry?
Talk just a little louder.
We have leaders who have Linwood Viking tattoos on their ankles. So it's not a surprise that we have pockets of deputies out there that replicate that type of behavior. I will say I believe the vast majority of the members of the Sheriff's Department are doing a good job, doing the right thing for the right reasons all the time. But I am not going to sit here looking Inspector General. I'm working with him on projects now, on reviews that he's doing. I support external oversight as long as it's not politicized. I don't want people appointed by politicians who then try to perpetuate a political agenda at the expense of the Sheriff's Department or anyone else. I want an independent body who's free to look at the department and make recommendations based upon their own deliberations and not those from external sources. But I want to take it a step further. I want to embed oversight within the organization. I have proposed a collaborative reform process, which is similar to what they did in Las Vegas a couple of years ago, where we invite the U.S. Department of Justice in, we invite best practices experts in to the Sheriff's Department, have them work arm in arm with us, side by side with us, and give them full access to the extent allowed by law to look at our processes, to look at our systems, to look at our personnel, and tell us where we need to do better. Now, in some places, we're going to be validated that we're doing the right things. But in many cases, I suspect, we're going to get recommendations for improvement. And I want those to be transformed into best practices for law enforcement organizations anywhere in the country. Because if we do it, it's going to be replicated by all the other county law enforcement agencies, and it's going to be replicated by law enforcement agencies throughout the United States of America. So I'm completely supportive of oversight, external and internal. I'm going to invite it in. Thank you.
Very good. And would you please, Mr. Hellman, try using the microphone? Some folks say they can't really hear. And you don't have to necessarily stand. You can talk.
All right, I'll try to use my big boy voice here. So when it comes to oversight, I'm a strong believer that we should have proper oversight, and I have a specific plan for it. I think we need to get with credible stakeholders to ensure, Reverend Cecil Murray, for example, was on part of the jail commission, so they came up and developed in a smart way some specific plans. So we need to get with everybody and figure out the best method, but I have some specific input too. I see Reverend JJ, who's a mentor of mine. He's here. He runs SWAT's task force with many of the people here. And what I want, it is so effective that we do need to have community oversight. So but we also need to have people with experience in the justice system. So my submission is that it should be twofold. A, we should have a inspector general like it's currently hired with attorney-client privileges, so they have full access to all of the police files to ensure that the investigations are conducted properly, and that we have thorough investigations. We found in the jail commission that some of the use of force, excessive force, wasn't even properly investigated. So we need to make sure that the quality of the investigations is conducted to ensure accountability. But then we need community forums that look just like this.
What does it take to figure that out?
Commissioners that we appoint,
Turn the mic
such
on,
as Reverend
hit the
JJ or
volume,
whoever,
put a master.
is determined by
just
the
it.
local community. And we have the Sheriff's Department that has to respond within a deadline to answer those questions that
they're up
everybody
there.
in the community
Welcome
has.
up.
I see Gerald Murphy here. I see so many people that I've worked with. And the point is we want direct accountability, people who have influence and contacts in the community, so that the real hard questions are answered, and we have a deadline to answer back to you, to the community. And that's what oversight is to me. Improving the quality of the investigations and responding back to the community.
Whoa! You found it! Nobody checks out beforehand. Where's prep, guys?
Thank you so much. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, like everybody knows about a volume control. Joke time.
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you so much. Is that working over there?
You're supposed to check first.
Sir, I'll make the comments and the candidates. Thank you.
I'm here to listen.
You know, we go to all these things, there's always some technical difficulties.
I don't have a problem ever.
Wait, just a minute, please. Just a minute. I'm the moderator,
Fine.
and I'm in charge of this meeting. If you have a question or a comment, write it on a card and it'll be brought up here to you. Other than that, show these people who are here to listen some respect and control yourself.
You need to show us respect so we can hear, sir.
Say it again.
I had to fix your problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You finally fixed it.
What form of oversight do I want to see at the Sheriff's Department? I want to see, I've met with Inspector General Max Huntsman, and he said something that really stuck with me. And what he said was, by the time he gets a chance to sunshine or show a light on something that's going wrong at the sheriff's department, it's far too late. That's why it's so important that you make the decision about who your next sheriff is carefully, because really that's who's going to have the impact on what is shared with the community and what's not. I also support a civilian oversight commission. I agree with my opponents here that it needs to be non-political, but let's face it, it's going to be a little bit political. But the point is that we can't be afraid to show what's going on in the sheriff's department. And to that point, the best form of oversight that I think in 21st century policing is cameras. I want to see cameras on the dashboards, cameras on the lapels, and cameras in every aspect or every portion of the county jail system. I mean, we got cameras all over Compton. I don't think that, you know, what's good for the goose is what's good for the gander. The sheriff's department can't be afraid to show what it's doing. Good or bad, it's going to show how impossible the deputy's job is sometimes, but it's also going to show where we make mistakes and where we can learn and where we can benefit from reviewing that and training and showing it to everybody that's out there. Again, you're going to hear a theme from me. It's about trust, and I'd invite any form and all forms of oversight.
Oh, thank you for first standing, if you don't mind. I think you need to take a look at this from a balanced approach, both an internal and external oversight process. So from an internal process, this is one of the first things I have to do when I'm sheriff of the LA County Sheriff's Department. I have to ask you this. In the last 3.5, 4 years, with all the turmoil going on in the LA County Sheriff's Department, the moving of the inmates, violation of the 4th and 14th Amendment up north in North County, the harassment of the blacks and Hispanics up there as well, the aerial drone flight over the city of Compton. None of this happened in a void. None of it happened in a vacuum. It had to have occurred under the watch of some of the executives on the LA County Sheriff's Department. I have to ask them, where were you when this occurred? Because if you were around when this occurred and didn't do anything about it, then you don't deserve a job. You can retire, be fired, I'll investigate you, whatever the case may be. But we have to start the internal oversight from that standpoint of where were the executives when we needed them. The external oversight, I was the first to go out there and support Margaret Lee Thomas and Gloria Molina on the civilian oversight process. And I told Mark, I said, you know, what we need to do is have a civilian component in it as well. And it does not need to be political, and it should not. However, we can make a blue ribbon panel, just as we did with the Citizens Commission on Jail Violence, where the sheriff will listen, because the panel members will be so prestigious that they would whisper into the sheriff's ear that you better do this, because this is going to be the right thing to do for the community and for you as an organization. So we need to take a look at this both from an internal standpoint as well as an external standpoint. But we need